So HBO has revealed the principal child cast for its upcoming Harry Potter reboot series. We've already found out the main adult cast of people like Snape or Dumbledore, but we're now finally getting to know who's going to be playing the main trio, right? And this is going to be Dominic McLaughlin as Harry Potter. Center, obviously. I mean, I don't need to tell you who in this picture is who, right? I think it's pretty obvious. Dominic McLaughlin hasn't really been in all that much. He's going to be in a couple upcoming series already. He's going to be in an upcoming comedy on Sky, which is like NBC Comcast's channel in the UK, a program on that channel called Grow, as well as being on an upcoming action adventure series for the BBC titled Gifted. Then you have Arabella Stanton as Hermione Granger, whose main claim to fame was she starred as she was Matilda in the Matilda musical on the West End, I think in 2023, 2024. And then we have Alastair Stout as Ron Weasley, and this is actually his first major role. So really cool for if you're part of the Alastair Stout family, right? I got a quote here from the showrunner Francesca Gardner and executive producer and director Mark Millard saying, quote, "After an extraordinary search led by casting directors Lucy Bevan and Emily Brockman, we are delighted to announce we have found our Harry, Hermione, and Ron. The talent of these three unique actors is wonderful to behold, and we cannot wait for the world to witness their magic together on screen. We would like to thank all the tens of thousands of children who auditioned. It's been a real pleasure to discover the plethora of young talent out there," end quote. So, take a step back, looking at Harry Potter. Of course, this is the multimedia behemoth of a franchise. Though those dwindled a little bit, and I'll talk about that in a second, right? Of course, this originates as the iconic and wildly successful book series. There were 7 of them from 1997 to 2007, which then, of course, led to a semi-concurrent, right? Like, I think they started the films in 2001. So they were kind of making the movies not long after the respective books were coming out. In this film series, there was 8 films from 2001 to 2011. This also led to a prequel series, the Fantastic Beasts movies, with 3 films, but those were not very well received. The first one got okay reviews. It just kept getting worse and worse with every entry. But like I mentioned, the fandom kind of feels like it's dying down. As millennials get older, because this is such a millennial fixation, right? As millennials get older and are focused on other things, they're having kids, they have other things to do and worry about besides posting online about Harry Potter. As that starts to die down, Warner Brothers probably took a look around and went, shit, we need to revitalize this property, especially because they've invested so much with Universal in building like the Harry Potter Hogwarts area of their theme parks, right? So theoretically, this television series will allow for a more faithful adaptation of the original source material because it's longer, there'll be less that has to be left on the cutting room floor, right? But because of that, basically it's going to be like each book is going to be 1 season of this show, supposedly. This is going to be like a decade-long project, right? This is like a very long-term investment by Warner Brothers and HBO, right? And again, this casting is the result of a very intensive casting process. They auditioned something like 35,000 young actors since last fall with an open casting call, which I think was the right choice because you gotta just find someone like the original 3 of Daniel Radcliffe and Emma Watson and I always feel so bad for Ron Weasley. What's his name? Rupert Grint, right? Yeah, Rupert Grint. I knew that, but I didn't want to say it and then be wrong. But I should have been brave because I was right. You gotta find someone completely fresh. And not only do you want to find someone fresh, you almost need to like have a psychologist come on and like evaluate these kids. Because, again, this is a decade-long investment. And you could recast, but it's gonna be a bad look if after 2 seasons you have to recast your Hermione or your Ron. You'll recast one of these characters because they kind of flame out or they have some kind of issue or something happens, right? So you really need to be particular. And the fact that those 8 films turned out as well as they did, with those child actors maturing into really, really strong actors, and seemingly being fairly well adjusted, all things considered, as adults, that was a miracle. So it's like, can lightning really strike? Can you really do it twice, right? seeing all those other tens of thousands of child actors is not all for waste, because, you know, they can then Deadline notes that they can pull from those like runner-ups and other contenders for the rest of the child cast, like Draco Malfoy. Who's the one that I feel like is like the Charlie Brown of the Neville Longbottom, right? He's like the Charlie Brown of the Harry Potter universe. So this is exciting again to see that progress has actually been made. But will this series be any good? Like, I've talked about this on this channel many times, that I feel like, again, this could be really good, but it's in spite of its inception, not because of it. Because its inception, like I said, is rooted in like, we need to do this to keep the brand alive. Because we're sitting on these rights. We've tried spin-offs, we've tried prequels with Fantastic Beasts. We've tried sequels with Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, the stage play, which is very financially successful, but like critics were kind of mixed on it. So they're kind of just like, we're just gonna go back to the drawing board, right? There's the J.K. Rowling of it all. Her being so controversial with so many of her transphobic remarks and activities. But again, I think the big issue is like, what is this going to provide that the films didn't? And I guess, again, the best case that you can make is that, again, because it's longer, it won't have to cut as much. Which, okay. But, again, it's still going to be a fairly conventional, it's still a live-action adaptation of Harry Potter. My argument is that I think they should have done an animated version, which not only would be something different and new, and really find ways to use the medium of animation to bring this magical world to life, but also solves your problem with the child stars, right? Take something like Lilo and Stitch, which me and my fiance Vivian and I were just watching the other night. And the voice actress for Lilo is so good. I think Lilo is only supposed to be like Lilo age. How old is she supposed to? She's supposed to be like 6 years old, right? I believe the actress who voiced her was like 9, 10, 12 when they did it. So if it would be better if they did this, but cast older actors who like they could be like, okay, like they're a little bit older, a little bit more mature. We have an idea that like they're not gonna like flame out or like go insane, right? Because that's what you could do in animation, right? And so many kids in animation are voiced by adults. And you see the difference between the performance of Lilo in an animated movie. And again, I haven't seen the new Lilo and Stitch movie, but you like from the trailers, the actress who plays Lilo, I mean, like, God bless her, but she's like 6 years old in real life, or however old she is. She's not that good of an actor. She's like 6 years old. You know what I mean? So, you run the risk when you have actual children, because they just haven't had the experience or the time to develop their craft, their acting muscle, right? So, I really hope for the best with these kids. I hope they don't get bullied and they don't become like insane former child stars. I really hope that they can keep a good head on their shoulders, but I think there's a lot of responsibility on Warner Brothers and HBO's shoulders to do whatever they can to make sure that they are set up for success as human beings, and not just use them like disposable, Kleenex, and then when they're done with them, go like, okay, we're done with you now. Wow, what an interesting story. I'm sure you have some thoughts about the topic, so comment below, let me know what you think. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps people find the channel and makes me feel all warm inside. Until next time, I'm Peter Mancuso. Peace out.